David Rivers gripped the control panel as red warning lights flooded his vision. The experimental drive hummed with a sound that made his teeth ache. Outside the viewport, stars stretched into impossible lines of light. This was supposed to be routine. Test the new quantum fold system, collect data, return home to Earth for analysis. Simple. Nothing about this felt simple anymore. The Wanderer shuddered violently. Alarms screamed through the small cockpit. Numbers on his display spiraled into meaningless chaos. David's fingers flew across the controls, trying desperately to abort the sequence. The drive wouldn't respond. It was building toward something catastrophic. Computer emergency shutdown. He shouted over the noise, unable to comply. Quantum field collapse in progress. Dimensional barriers compromised. The words meant nothing and everything. David had been a pilot for 12 years. Survived 3 major battles during the colony wars. Watched friends die in the void of space. He knew when something had gone terribly wrong. This was beyond wrong. This was impossible. Reality itself seemed to tear apart around him. Through the viewport, he saw things that couldn't exist. Dragons made of fire and starlight. A woman with scales that shimmered like diamonds. A child laughing somewhere in the distance. Then pain, sharp and absolute, as if his atoms were being pulled in different directions. The ship spun. David's harness dug into his chest. He tasted copper in his mouth. Blood. His head had hit something during the violent rotation. The universe outside turned into a kaleidoscope of purple and gold and crimson. None of it made sense. Then impact. The Wanderer hit ground hard enough to throw David against his restraints. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Emergency foam deployed, cushioning him from the worst of it. But the ship was dying. He could hear it in every groan of twisted metal, every spark from severed power lines. Silence followed, heavy and oppressive. David blinked through the blood running into his eyes. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive. He released his harness with shaking hands and fell forward. His legs barely caught him. The cockpit was destroyed. Smoke filled the air. He grabbed an emergency pack from its mounting and stumbled toward the escape hatch. It took 3 tries to get the manual release to work. The hatch opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere. David fell out onto alien soil. 2 suns blazed overhead in a purple sky. He'd never seen a purple sky before. The air smelled wrong. Not bad, just different, like cinnamon mixed with ozone. The landscape stretched out in rolling hills covered with crimson grass and strange, twisted trees. In the distance, mountains rose with peaks that glowed orange from within. David's training kicked in. Assess situation. Check for injuries. Secure perimeter. Find water. Make shelter. He had a gash on his forehead and bruised ribs, but nothing broken. The ship's rear section was relatively intact. He could use it for shelter while he figured out what to do next. The emergency pack contained a medical kit, water purification tablets, energy bars, and a sidearm. Not much, but enough to survive a few days. Computer? David called out as he climbed back inside. Static answered him. Then a weak voice. Primary systems offline. Life support minimal. Running diagnostic, and where are we? Calculating. Stellar cartography indicates unknown sector. Atmospheric analysis suggests Class M planet. High oxygen content. Gravity approximately 1.1 Earth standard. How far from home? The pause lasted too long. Unknown. Temporal displacement detected. Quantum signature indicates chronological anomaly. David's blood went cold. Say that again. Ship has experienced temporal displacement, estimating displacement at approximately 600 years into the past, based on stellar drift patterns. 600 years into the past. The words didn't process properly. They couldn't. Time travel was theoretical. Impossible. Yet here he stood on an alien world with 2 suns and a purple sky, and his computer was telling him he'd somehow fallen backwards through time itself. He sat down hard on a cargo crate. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Everything he knew, everyone he knew, wouldn't even be born for 6 centuries. He was alone, completely and utterly alone. A sound outside made him freeze. Footsteps, light ones. David drew his sidearm and moved to the hatch carefully. He peered out into the crimson forest. A child stood 30 meters away. A girl maybe 8 years old. She had silver hair that caught the double sunlight. Her eyes were amber with vertical pupils like a cat. Small wings, barely developed, protruded from her back. She wore ragged clothes made from animal hide. Her feet were bare. She stared directly at him with an expression he couldn't read. David lowered his weapon slowly. "Hello?" The girl tilted her head. Then she spoke in broken, accented universal standard, the common language of Earth's colonies. How could she possibly know it? "Father?" she whispered. "You came, but you're so young." David's mind went blank. "What?" "Mother said you would come. When the stars bled and the sky broke, she said you would fall from heaven." The girl took a step closer. Tears ran down her dirty face. "But why are you young? You should be older. You should know me. I don't understand. I'm not your father. I've never been here before." The girl pulled something from around her neck. A pendant on a leather cord. She held it up. David's breath caught. The pendant bore the insignia of the Wanderer, his ship. The design was unique, created specifically for this mission. There was no way this child could have that symbol unless... "Mother made me promise to wait at the prophecy site. She said you would come here. She said you would be confused." The girl swayed on her feet. Now that David looked closer, he could see how thin she was, malnourished, exhausted. "She said to show you this. She said you would understand." The girl collapsed. David was moving before he realized it. He caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was burning hot. Fever. No, something else. Her body temperature was naturally higher than human. He carried her quickly back into the ship and laid her on the cleanest surface he could find. Computer, medical scan. The scanner hummed to life. Results appeared on the damage screen. David read them twice because they couldn't be right. The girl was human, partly. 50% human DNA. The other 50% was something else entirely. Something reptilian but far more complex. The scan labeled it as Drakari genetic material, hybrid, half human, half alien. And according to the genetic markers, the human DNA was a familial match to David's own. This impossible child was his daughter. But he'd never met a Drakari. Didn't even know what a Drakari was. He'd certainly never had a child. Yet here she lay, proof of something that hadn't happened yet. Something that would happen in his future but was already in her past. David's head spun with the implications. Time travel. A daughter he would have with an alien woman he hadn't met. A child existing before her own conception. The pendant around her neck caught the light. His ship's symbol, handmade and worn smooth by young hands. She'd been waiting for him. Her mother had told her where to wait, when to wait. How could anyone have known? The girl stirred, mumbling in her fevered sleep. "Papa, you came back. Don't leave again." David Rivers, veteran pilot and survivor of countless battles, felt something break inside his chest. This child was alone, starving, waiting for a father who didn't exist yet, and somehow, impossibly, that father was him. He pulled a thermal blanket from the emergency supplies and covered her carefully. Her silver hair spread across the makeshift pillow. She looked so small, so fragile, yet she had his eyes. The same gray blue he saw every morning in the mirror. "What's your name?" he whispered, though she couldn't hear. But he would find out, and he would keep her safe. Because if time itself had brought him here, if destiny had crossed 600 years and countless light years to place him on this world at this exact moment, then he would accept it. David Rivers had just become a father, even if his daughter's mother didn't exist yet. The girl woke 3 hours later with a gasp. Her amber eyes flew open, wild with panic. She scrambled backward until she hit the wall, wings flaring defensively. Then she saw David and froze. "You're real," she breathed. "I thought I dreamed you." David kept his distance, hands visible and non-threatening. "I'm real. You're safe now." "What's your name?" "Lyra, I chose it myself. Mother said I could pick any name I wanted when I was old enough." She relaxed slightly but didn't move closer. "You don't remember me?" "No, I'm sorry." "I don't." David chose his words carefully. "But I want to understand. Can you tell me about your mother?" Lyra's face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "She died 6 months ago. The bad people came. They wanted to hurt me because I'm wrong. Half-blood, they called me. Demon spawn. Mother fought them so I could run." Her small hands clenched into fists. "I wasn't strong enough to help her. I was too scared. How old are you, Lyra?" 8 summers. Almost 9. She wiped her eyes roughly. "Mother always said when the sky broke and the metal bird fell, my father would come. She told me exactly where to wait. Said you would be confused because time doesn't flow the same for everyone, I didn't understand then. I think I do now. David's computer beeped. He glanced at the screen, reading the analysis it had been running. Bootstrap paradox, temporal causality loop. The technical terms meant something simple and horrible. He would meet Lyra's mother in his future. They would have Lyra together. But from Lyra's perspective, that had already happened. She existed as proof of events that hadn't occurred yet from his timeline. Changing anything could erase her from existence, or worse, create a paradox that might tear apart reality itself. "Tell me about your mother," David said gently. "What was she like?" Lyra's expression softened. Beautiful, strong. She could fly faster than anyone in her clan. Had scales like starlight, she said. Silver and blue and purple. Her name was Sarah. She sang to me every night. The girl's voice grew quieter. She told me stories about you. About the stars you came from. About Earth with its single sun and blue sky. She said you were brave and kind and that you tried so hard to save everyone even when you couldn't. What else did she tell you about me? That you had a scar here. Lyra pointed to her left shoulder. From a battle before you met her. That you hated the taste of red vine but ate it anyway to be polite. That you counted things when you were nervous. 1, 2, 3, always in threes, she tilted her head. You're doing it now. Tapping your fingers. 3 times, David looked down at his hand. She was right. He hadn't even noticed. This child knew him. Knew his habits, his scars, his story. But he knew nothing of her. The wrongness of it made his chest ache. I need food, Lyra said suddenly, breaking the heavy silence. Haven't eaten in 3 days. The hunting has been bad. David immediately dug into his emergency supplies. The ration bars weren't meant for children, but they were nutrient-dense. He handed her one and watched as she devoured it with desperate hunger. He gave her another, then a third. She ate all of them so fast he worried she might get sick. Slow down. There's more if you need it. Sorry. Lyra looked embarrassed. Mother always said I ate like a starving drake. It's the dragon blood. Makes me hungry all the time. Need more energy than full humans. What else does the dragon blood do? Lyra held up her hand. Concentrated. Her skin shimmered and small silver scales appeared across her palm. I'm stronger than I look. Faster too. Can't breathe fire like full-blooded Drakari, but I don't burn easy. And I can feel things. Emotions like heat in the air. She looked at him with those 2 knowing eyes. You're scared, confused, but also determined. You've decided to protect me even though you don't understand why yet. You can read my emotions? Not read. Feel. It's different. She dismissed the scales with a thought. Mother said my abilities would be stronger than hers because I'm mixed. Human ingenuity with Drakari power. That's what makes the purebloods afraid. That's why they killed her. David's jaw tightened. Who killed her? The purists. They believe in blood purity. Think mixed breeds like me poison the Drakari race. They're part of the Crimson Wing clan. But not all Crimson Wing are bad. Mother was Crimson Wing. She was the clan leader's daughter. Lyra hugged her knees to her chest. When she got pregnant with me, they called it a betrayal. Said she mated with a demon. They cast her out. She lived alone in the wild lands, raising me by herself. But they never stopped hunting us. The Crimson Wing clan. Where are they? 2 days' walk to the west. Their settlement is in the volcanic hills. But you can't go there. They'll kill you on sight. Humans are from the old stories. The first walkers. Most Drakari think you're myths. David processed this information. He was stranded on an alien world 600 years in the past. The dominant species believed his kind were legends. His daughter, from a relationship that hadn't happened yet, was being hunted by fanatics, and somehow he was supposed to navigate all of this without destroying the timeline. Computer, he said. Analysis. If I take actions that prevent Lyra's birth, what happens to her current existence? The AI's voice crackled through damaged speakers. Unknown. Temporal mechanics at this scale are purely theoretical. Current hypothesis suggests Lyra exists outside standard causality. Her presence may be a fixed point in spacetime. Alternatively, preventing her conception could create a paradox wave that erases her retroactively, meaning she could just vanish. Correct. Lyra had been listening. I won't vanish. I'm already here. Time doesn't work the way you think it does. Mother explained it once. She said time is like a river. You can drop stones in it, change the flow a little. But the river still goes to the same ocean. I'm the ocean, Father. I'm where the river goes. You can't stop that. Your mother sounds like she was very wise, and she was. Lyra stood up, stronger now after eating. She also said you would need help, that you couldn't survive here alone. The Drakari will notice the crash. They'll come to investigate. When they find you, they'll either worship you as the prophesied Starwalker or kill you as a threat. Which is more likely? Depends on who finds you first. Lyra moved to the damaged hatch and peered out at the Crimson Forest. The Crimson Wing patrol this area. If we're lucky, we get scouts who report to the clan leader. If we're unlucky, we get purist fanatics who ask questions never. We should fortify this position. Make it defensible. No, we should leave. Find somewhere hidden. I know places. Caves where Mother and I used to hide. Lyra turned back to him. You're thinking like a soldier. This isn't a battle you can win with weapons and walls. This is about survival, about being smart. David considered her words. She was right. He couldn't defend against an entire alien civilization with a damaged ship and limited supplies. But he also couldn't just hide. He needed resources, information, allies if possible. What if we do both? He said. Use your hiding places as our base. But I need to salvage technology from the ship, things that might help us survive long term. Can you help me identify what's most valuable? Lyra nodded slowly. I can try. Mother taught me some things. But we have to be quick. The smoke from your crash was visible for leagues. They're already coming. They worked together for the next hour. David salvaged critical components. Power cells, the portable fabricator, medical supplies, water filtration system, his sidearm and extra charge packs, the damaged AI core, because it contained all his knowledge and records. Lyra helped carry things despite her small size, her hybrid strength making her far more capable than she looked. As the second sun began to set, painting the purple sky in shades of orange and gold, Lyra led him into the forest. She moved with practiced ease, following paths only she could see. David struggled to keep up, his human eyes less adapted to the strange light. Not far now, Lyra whispered. The first cave is just beyond the crystal grove. They emerged into a clearing filled with massive crystalline formations. The crystals hummed with internal light, casting rainbow patterns across the ground. Lyra navigated through them confidently, leading David to a narrow opening in the hillside beyond. The cave was perfect. Deep enough to hide them, dry with a natural chimney for smoke. Signs of previous habitation. A fire pit, crude shelves carved into stone, a sleeping mat woven from some kind of plant fiber. Mother and I stayed here for 2 months once, Lyra said quietly, after a bad winter when the purists got too close to our regular home. This is where she taught me to fight, to survive. David set down his salvaged equipment. The weight of the situation pressed down on him. He was a father now, to a child who had lived a life he knew nothing about, a child who had lost everything and was still standing, still fighting, still hoping. Lyra, he said, I promise you something. I don't know how this all works. I don't know if I can change what's coming, but I will protect you, and I will find your mother. When I do, I'll make sure things are different this time, better. Lyra looked at him with ancient eyes and a young face. You can't save her, father. I've already lived through her death. It's part of my past. It happened, maybe, but I haven't lived through it yet. It's still my future, which means it's not written yet. Not for me. For the first time since waking, Lyra smiled. Small and fragile, but real. Mother said you were stubborn. Said you never accepted defeat even when it was staring you in the face. She walked over and hugged him awkwardly. I'm glad you came. Even if you don't remember me yet. I'm glad you're here. David hugged her back, this impossible daughter from a future that hadn't happened. And he made a silent vow. Time might be a river flowing to an inevitable ocean, but rivers could be diverted, dammed, changed. He would find a way. He had to, because the alternative was losing them both, and David Rivers had lost enough for one lifetime. They came at dawn. David heard them before he saw them. The sound of wings cutting through air, heavy footfalls on stone, voices speaking in a language that sounded like fire and thunder mixed together. He moved to the cave entrance carefully, staying in shadow. Lyra pressed against his side, her small hand gripping his jacket. 5 of them, she whispered. Scouts from the Crimson Wing. I recognize the wing patterns. David watched as 5 Drakari landed near his crashed ship. They were magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Bipedal, roughly humanoid in shape but covered in scales that shimmered red and gold. Wings that spanned at least 4 meters, claws that could easily tear through metal. They moved with predatory grace, examining the wreckage with obvious fascination. One of them, larger than the others with darker scales, barked orders. The others spread out, searching the area. They were looking for survivors. "Looking for him, I have to talk to them," David said. "No, they'll kill you." "They'll find us eventually. Better to make contact on my terms." He checked his sidearm, making sure it was set to stun. "Stay here. If anything goes wrong, run deeper into the caves. Promise me." Lyra's face was pale, but she nodded. "I promise. But Father, be careful. Not all of them think like clan leader Varos. Some still fear the old stories." David emerged from the cave entrance with his hands raised, weapon holstered but visible. He walked slowly toward the crash site. It took less than 10 seconds for the Drakari to notice him. Their reaction was immediate. Wings flared. Claws extended. The dark-scaled leader hissed something that needed no translation. "Hostile intent, I mean no harm," David called out, knowing they probably couldn't understand. He pointed to himself. "David, human, from the stars." He pointed up. The leader tilted his head, studying David with eyes that glowed like embers. Then he spoke. The words were alien, but something in his tone suggested curiosity rather than pure aggression. He gestured at the ship, then at David, asking a question. David activated his translator device. It had survived the crash and was designed to learn languages through context. It would take time, but it was his best chance. He tapped it and spoke slowly. "I came from space. My ship broke. I need help." The translator hummed, analyzing the Drakari speech patterns from their reactions. It would need more data. One of the younger scouts stepped forward, speaking rapidly. The leader snapped something that made the scout back down immediately. Then the leader approached David. They stood 3 meters apart. David kept his hands visible. The Drakari was easily 2 meters tall, muscular and powerful. His scales bore scars from many battles. This was a warrior who had survived through strength and cunning, not someone to underestimate. The leader pointed at David, then at the sky, then made a questioning gesture. David nodded. "Yes, from the sky. From Earth. Human." The word human made all 5 Drakari react. They exchanged glances. One of them spoke a word that the translator caught and analyzed. "First walker." Another said something that meant prophecy or ancient promise. They were afraid and awed in equal measure. The dark-scaled leader made a decision. He gestured for David to follow, then spoke directly to him. The translator managed a rough approximation. "Come, Varos will decide. Live or die." Not my choice, David understood enough. They were taking him to their clan leader. He would be judged. The alternative was fighting 5 armed Drakari, which would end badly for everyone. He nodded acceptance. They made him walk ahead of them, wings casting shadows over him as they flew low. The journey took 2 hours. The Crimson Wing settlement appeared suddenly, built into and around a volcanic hillside. Structures of stone and metal, primitive but sophisticated. Smoke rose from forges. David could see Drakari everywhere. Hundreds of them. A full civilization. His arrival caused an immediate stir. Drakari stopped what they were doing to stare. Some approached for a closer look. Others backed away in fear. Children peeked from doorways with wide eyes. The scouts led him through the center of the settlement toward the largest structure, built directly into the volcanic rock. Inside, the heat was intense. A massive chamber with a throne carved from black stone, and sitting on that throne was Varos. The clan leader was ancient. His scales were more silver than red, marked with countless scars. But his eyes were sharp and intelligent. He leaned forward as David was brought before him, studying the human with unconcealed fascination. Varos spoke. The translator had learned enough to provide rough meaning. "A human. In my lifetime. The prophecies spoke truth. But are you blessing or curse, Starwalker?" David chose his words carefully. "I am David Rivers. I came from beyond the stars. My ship failed. I crashed here by accident. I mean your people no harm. I seek only to survive." "Survive," Varos repeated the word. "Humans are legends. Stories told to hatchlings. The first walkers who taught us language and fireworking. Then they vanished, leaving only ruins and warnings. Now you fall from the sky when war consumes our world. Coincidence? I think not. I don't know your prophecies. I don't know why I'm here. But I have knowledge, technology. I can help your people if you give me the chance." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Other Drakari had gathered, filling the space. David noticed divisions among them. Some looked at him with hope. Others with suspicion and hate. A faction stood apart, marked by white scales painted on their foreheads. Purists, he realized. The ones who had killed Sarah. One of the purists stepped forward, speaking harshly. Varos listened, then responded with equal force. An argument ensued. The translator struggled with the rapid speech, but caught fragments. Demon. Corruption. Kill the outsider. Versus prophecy. Knowledge. Opportunity. Finally, Varos raised a clawed hand for silence. He spoke directly to David. The purists demand your death. They believe you bring corruption. They cite old texts that warn of humans who will destroy our way of life. He paused. But I am leader here. I make decisions. You will prove your worth. Survive the trial of embers. Show me humans are strong as the legends claim. Then we will speak of alliance. What is the trial of embers? 3 days. Volcanic badlands alone, no supplies. Survive and return with proof of your strength. Fail and die, simple. It wasn't simple. It was a death sentence wrapped in ritual. But David had no choice. Refusing would mean immediate execution. At least this way he had a chance. I accept. Varos nodded with satisfaction. Tomorrow, when the first sun rises, we will see if humans are as clever as the stories claim. They gave him 1 night. A small cell carved into volcanic rock. No windows, no comfort. Just stone and heat and time to think about all the ways he could die. David sat in the darkness and reviewed everything in his mind. The Badlands would be hostile. Extreme heat during the day, freezing cold at night. Volcanic activity meant poisonous gases. Native predators that had evolved in those harsh conditions. He needed advantages. The Drakari had taken his weapon but not his knowledge. David still had his training, his experience. And he had something they didn't expect. He understood science in ways they couldn't imagine. Physics, chemistry, engineering. The universe operated on rules. And humans had spent millennia learning to exploit those rules. A sound at the cell door made him look up. A young Drakari slipped inside, moving quickly and quietly. Female. With scales that shimmered silver and blue even in the dim light. She carried a small bundle. You are the human, she said in surprisingly clear universal standard. David's translator confirmed she spoke his language, though with an accent. I am Sarah, daughter of Varos. I have brought you water and food. The trial will be difficult. You should eat. David's heart stopped. Sarah, Lyra's mother, here, now. Younger than he'd expected, maybe 26 in human years. Strong and fierce and beautiful in a way that was completely alien and completely captivating at the same time. She set down the bundle and studied him with curious eyes. You speak our language poorly, but you understand. The elders were right. Humans are intelligent. Tell me, Starwalker, why did you come here? What purpose brings you to our world in its darkest hour? No purpose. Just accident, bad luck. Or maybe fate. I don't know anymore. Fate. Sarah smiled slightly. My mother believed in fate. She said everything happens for a reason, that the universe has a plan. I think that is beautiful nonsense. We make our own paths. Your mother? Dead 10 years now. She was killed in the clan wars. Sarah's expression hardened. She believed too much in honor and prophecy. It made her weak. I learned from her mistakes. I believe in strength, in action, not words and ancient promises. David saw it then. The pain hidden behind warrior's pride. The same pain Lyra would carry. This woman had been hurt deeply and had built walls around herself to survive. But somewhere inside was the person who would love fiercely enough to die protecting her daughter. I'm sorry for your loss, David said quietly. Sarah looked surprised. Why? You did not know her. No, but I know loss. I lost people too. During the wars on my world. Loss doesn't need explanation. It just is. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sarah spoke again, softer this time. The trial will test you severely. Many Drakari have died attempting it, but I think you might survive. There is something about you, a strength that is not physical. Here. She tapped her chest over her heart. Inside. Thank you for the food. And for speaking to me. You didn't have to. No, I did not. Sarah stood to leave, then paused at the door. The Badlands have crystal formations. They grow near water sources. Find them and you find life. Also, the rock worms are blind. They hunt by vibration. Walk softly and they will not sense you. She glanced back at him. My father must not know I told you this. He would see it as weakness. Why help me? Because you are the first interesting thing to happen in years. It would be disappointing if you died immediately. But her smile suggested something more. Curiosity. Connection. The first spark of what would eventually become love. Then she was gone, leaving David alone with food, water, and the knowledge that he had just met the woman who would change everything. The woman he would have to save from a death she didn't know was coming. The woman who would give him Lyra. David survived the trial of embers. Barely. He returned to the Crimson Wing settlement on the third day covered in ash and dried blood, carrying the crystalline horn of a magma drake he'd killed using nothing but rocks, fire, and human stubbornness. The Drakari gathered in stunned silence as he walked through the settlement gates. Pharos himself came down from his throne to examine the trophy. Impossible, one of the elders breathed. No outsider has ever survived, let alone claimed a drake horn. But David had. 3 days of hell had taught him that this world operated on rules he could learn and exploit. The volcanic gases were toxic but lighter than air, staying in low valleys. The rockworms Sarah mentioned were indeed blind but also predictable, following geothermal channels. The magma drakes were aggressive but territorial, fighting each other more than threats. David had simply let 2 drakes weaken themselves in combat, then finished the survivor with a trap. Barros examined the horn carefully, then looked at David with new respect. You have proven yourself, Starwalker. The Crimson Wing recognizes your strength. You will be given guest rights. You may build a dwelling near our territory. You may trade with us. You may speak freely. He paused. And you will teach us. Show us the knowledge of humans. In return, we will provide protection and resources. It wasn't friendship, but it was survival. David accepted. The following weeks passed in a blur of learning and teaching. David established a home in a salvage section of his ship, fortified and expanded with help from curious Drakari craftsmen. He introduced concepts that revolutionized their metalworking. Simple things to him. How to achieve higher temperatures in forges. How to create alloys stronger than pure metals. How to design structures that could withstand earthquakes and volcanic activity. The Drakari were brilliant engineers in their own right. They learned fast and adapted faster. In return, they taught him about their world. The politics between clans, the history of the flame wars that had been raging for decades, the prophecies about Starwalkers that went back thousands of years, and Sarah was always there. Barros had assigned his daughter as David's liaison. She was supposed to help him understand Drakari culture and ensure he didn't accidentally insult anyone or break taboo, but it quickly became more than that. They spent hours together, talking, learning from each other. She taught him to speak Drakari properly. He taught her about stars and planets and the vast universe beyond her world. Your people travel between stars? Sarah asked one evening as they sat outside David's dwelling, watching the twin suns set. Truly, we do. Not easily. Not quickly, but yes. There are human colonies on dozens of worlds now. We've met other species, traded with them, sometimes fought them. David smiled sadly. Humanity has a talent for both connection and conflict. Like Drakari then. We war with ourselves constantly, clan against clan, philosophy against philosophy. She looked at him curiously. Do you miss your world? Every day. But I can never return to it, at least not the version I knew. Time has made that impossible. Sarah had learned about his temporal displacement. She found it fascinating rather than frightening. So you are from the future, my future. You have seen what will come to pass, not your future, a different timeline perhaps. Or maybe the same one. I don't understand it anymore. David had decided to tell her parts of the truth, not about Lyra, not yet, but about the time travel. Where I come from, 600 years forward, this world is different, changed, but I don't know how it changes. I only know I'm here now. Then we make the future together, starting from this moment. Sarah reached out and touched his hand. Her scales were warm, her claws carefully retracted to avoid cutting him. I am glad you survived the trial. Glad you are here. David felt the weight of destiny pressing down on him. This moment, this connection, it was all leading toward Lyra, toward love and loss and a daughter who was currently hiding in caves, waiting for him to finish reliving her past. Sarah, I need to tell you something. Then tell me. But before he could speak, shouts erupted from the settlement. Alarms, the deep horn that meant danger. They both stood immediately, looking toward the commotion. Fire rose into the sky. Not forge fire. Battle fire, the purists, Sarah hissed. They are making their move. The attack came fast and brutal. The purist faction had allied with the Iron Scale clan, one of Crimson Wing's oldest enemies. They struck at dusk when most warriors were off duty. They targeted the forges first, destroying months of work. Then they came for David. A squad of purist fighters surrounded his dwelling. Their leader, a scarred Drakari named Brutus with white war paint, pointed a clawed finger at David. The demon must die. He corrupts our ways. He turns us from the old paths. David drew his sidearm, set to lethal this time. I don't want to fight you. Then die quietly. They attacked as one. David opened fire, the energy weapon dropping 2 purists immediately. But there were too many. Claws raked across his shoulder. He rolled, came up firing, dropped another. But a 4th tackled him from behind, driving him into the ground. Claws reached for his throat. Then Sarah was there. She slammed into the purist at full speed, her greater mass and momentum carrying them both away from David. Her claws found the purist's throat. One quick motion. It was over. Touch him and die. Sarah roared at the remaining attackers. He is under my protection. Under clan protection. More Crimson Wing warriors arrived, led by Varos himself. The purist retreated, but not before Brutus shouted back. This is not over. The demon and his corruption will be purged, and those who harbor him will burn with him. The battle ended. 8 purists dead. 3 Crimson Wing warriors wounded. David's home damaged but standing. He sat against a wall while Sarah tended his shoulder wound with practiced efficiency. They will come again, she said quietly. Brutus will not stop. The purists believe they are righteous. That makes them dangerous. I'm bringing war to your people. You did not start this war. It has been building for years. You are simply the spark that forced them to act openly. She finished bandaging him and sat back. My father will exile the remaining purists tomorrow. But they will join Iron Scale. The fighting will intensify. David looked at her, blood on her scales, fierce and protective, willing to kill for him. This was the woman Lyra would know. This was the woman who would die fighting to protect her daughter. He couldn't let that happen. Wouldn't let that happen. Sarah, I need to show you something, someone, but you have to trust me. I trust you. Then come with me. Tonight. There's a place I need to take you. A person you need to meet. They traveled in darkness to the cave where Lyra waited. The journey took hours, both of them on edge, watching for purist patrols. When they finally arrived, Lyra was at the cave entrance, clearly having heard them approach. She saw Sarah and froze. Her amber eyes went wide. Mama, she whispered. Sarah stared at the small hybrid girl, at the silver hair, the amber eyes, the vestigial wings. Recognition dawned slowly. She looks like me. Like my mother looked in the old portraits, but she is half human. How is this possible? Because I'm your daughter, Lyra said softly. From the future that hasn't happened yet. I'm the child you'll have with him. She pointed at David. I know this is confusing. I know you don't understand. But it's true. Sarah looked between David and Lyra, processing the impossible. You knew, since you arrived. You knew we would be together, that we would have a child. Yes, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. How? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. How does she exist before her own conception? Time broke when my ship jumped. It created a paradox. Lyra exists outside normal causality. She's the proof of what will be and what already was. David moved to stand beside Lyra, hand on her small shoulder. She's been alone, Sarah. Her mother died protecting her 6 months ago. From her perspective, in our future, she's been waiting for us to catch up to her past. Sarah approached slowly. She knelt before Lyra, studying every detail of the girl's face. Then she did something David didn't expect. She pulled Lyra into a fierce hug, wings wrapping around the child protectively. My daughter, Sarah breathed. I don't understand how, but I feel it here. She touched her chest. The bond is already there. As if my soul recognizes yours, Lyra broke down crying. I missed you so much. Every day. I tried to be strong like you taught me, but it was so hard. Shh, I am here now, and I will protect you. Nothing will harm you while I breathe. But David heard the promise and felt cold dread. Those words, that vow. It's exactly what Lyra had said her mother promised before she died. History was repeating itself. The timeline was reasserting itself. Sarah, David said carefully, in the original timeline you die protecting Lyra from purists. 3 years from now, we need to change that. Sarah looked up at him, tears on her scaled cheeks. Then we will change it. We know what is coming. We will be prepared. We will fight differently, better. It's not that simple. Changing events could erase Lyra from existence. The paradox is balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move and she vanishes. So we do nothing? We let fate happen? No, we plan. We prepare. But carefully. We need to understand exactly how things played out before we can change them safely. David looked at Lyra. You said you have your mother's memories, genetic memory. Can you tell us everything? Every detail of what happened? Lyra nodded slowly. I can try, but remembering hurts. It's like living through it again. I know, but we need to know. We need to see the future so we can change it. So Lyra told them everything. Her birth. The first 3 years of life lived in hiding with her mother. The purists hunting them. The day Brutus found their hiding place. The battle. How Sarah fought 6 warriors alone while Lyra ran. How her mother's last words were, "Find your father. He will come." Sarah listened with growing anger and determination. 3 years. We have 3 years to prepare. To become strong enough that 6 purists are nothing. To change fate itself. And in the meantime, David said, we build alliances. We strengthen the clan. We prepare for war while trying to prevent it. And we figure out how to keep both of you alive. Sarah stood, lifting Lyra with her. The child clung to her mother, finally reunited. Then we begin tomorrow. Tonight I stay with my daughter. Our daughter. She looked at David with an expression he couldn't quite read. Gratitude, determination, something deeper. Together we will break the cycle. Time itself will bend to our will. David wanted to believe her, but he remembered the AI's warnings. The computer's analysis. Paradoxes couldn't be broken easily. Time had inertia, momentum. Changing fixed points required massive force and usually resulted in catastrophic consequences. But looking at Sarah holding Lyra, both of them finally together, he made a choice. He would risk everything. Break every rule of temporal mechanics. Tear apart causality itself if necessary. Because some things were worth destroying the universe for. And his family was one of them. 2 years passed like a storm building on the horizon. David, Sarah, and Lyra became an unlikely family living in the spaces between prophecy and reality. They established a hidden home in the caves while maintaining David's public presence as advisor to the Crimson Wing clan. Sarah visited whenever she could, stealing hours with her future daughter while maintaining her role as clan warrior and Varos's heir. The relationship between David and Sarah deepened naturally. What started as destiny became genuine love. They understood each other in ways that transcended species. Both were warriors who had lost too much. Both carried scars from battles they hadn't chosen. Both were fighting against a future they couldn't accept. One night, under the light of both moons, Sarah and David performed the Drakari bonding ritual. Lyra watched with tears in her eyes as her parents made promises to each other across time itself. The ceremony was simple. Exchange of scales and blood. Words spoken in the old language. A bond that the Drakari believed connected souls across lifetimes. I claim you, Sarah said, placing a scale from her own chest into David's palm. In this life and the next. My fire is yours. I claim you, David replied, cutting his hand and letting blood fall onto her scale. In this moment and all moments. My strength is yours, the bond formed. David felt it like electricity across his skin. Some kind of biological connection the Drakari had evolved, allowing mates to sense each other across distances. He could feel Sarah's heartbeat matching his own. Could sense her emotions as clearly as Lyra could. 6 months later, Sarah became pregnant. The timeline was asserting itself with inevitable momentum. But this time they were ready. This time they knew what was coming. Baby Lyra was born on a night when the volcanic mountains erupted in the distance, painting the sky red. The birth was difficult. Drakari-human hybrid genetics weren't perfectly compatible. David used every bit of medical knowledge he possessed and technology he'd salvaged to keep both Sarah and the baby alive. When the infant finally cried, drawing her first breath, both parents wept with relief. 8-year-old Lyra held her infant self with practiced care. Hello, little me. Welcome to the complicated part. The existence of two Lyras in the same timeline should have been impossible. But as the months passed, it became clear that older Lyra was serving as some kind of temporal anchor. Her presence from a deleted timeline stabilized the paradox. She wasn't fading. If anything, she seemed more solid, more real, as if baby Lyra's existence was strengthening rather than erasing her. The timeline is adapting, David's AI explained, creating a stable loop. Older Lyra exists because baby Lyra was born. Baby Lyra was born because older Lyra existed to guide events, cause and effect feeding back into themselves infinitely. So we're trapped in a loop? David asked. Or you've transcended it, created something new. A third possibility that doesn't erase either past or future. But the purists hadn't forgotten. Brutus had spent 2 years building his forces, allying with 3 other clans who feared the changes David brought. They called themselves the Flame Keepers, guardians of traditional Drakari purity. And they were coming. The intelligence reached Crimson Wing settlement on a cold morning. A massive army. 4 clans united. They would attack in 3 days. They demanded David be turned over for execution, and all his corrupting technology destroyed. Otherwise, they would raze the Crimson Wing settlement to ashes. Barros gathered his council. David was there, along with Sarah and several other clan leaders who had allied with them over the past 2 years. The old clan leader looked exhausted. We cannot win this fight through force, Barros said. They outnumber us 3-1. Even with the humans' weapons and tactics, we will be overwhelmed. Then we evacuate, Sarah argued. Take the non-combatants to safety. Fight a guerrilla war. Running solves nothing. They will hunt us until we are extinct or enslaved. Barros looked at David. This war started because of you. I do not blame you. But the reality is clear. The Flame Keepers want your head. If we give it to them, they will withdraw. Father, no. Sarah's scales flushed red with anger. David is family. He is my mate, the father of my child. We do not sacrifice family for peace, I know, which is why I will not order it. But I present it as an option. Barros met David's eyes. The choice is yours, Starwalker. What price are you willing to pay? David looked around the room. These Drakari had accepted him, protected him, learned from him. They were good people caught in a war they hadn't started. How many would die defending him? How many children would lose parents? How many futures would be destroyed? I have a different option, David said quietly. One you're not going to like. He explained his plan over the next hour. It was desperate and dangerous. It involved using the salvaged quantum drive from his crashed ship. David had been rebuilding it slowly over the past 2 years, trying to understand what had gone wrong. Trying to find a way home, but home was impossible. The drive was too damaged. It would never achieve a stable jump again. However, it could do one thing. It could create a massive temporal disruption, a localized time bubble that would trap anyone inside in a loop lasting subjective years, while mere moments passed outside. We lure the Flamekeeper army into the volcanic valley, activate the drive, trap them in the bubble. By the time they emerge, we'll be ready, or gone. Either way, we avoid a massacre. You would weaponize time itself. One of the elders breathed. That is forbidden, dangerous beyond measure. It's also our only chance. David looked at Sarah. But I need to tell you something. Using the drive again might destabilize the paradox that keeps older Lyra here. The temporal energy could erase her. Or worse. I don't know, older Lyra stepped forward. She'd been listening from the shadows. I know, I felt it. The moment you started rebuilding that drive, I felt my existence stretching thin, like I'm being pulled in 2 directions at once. Then we find another way, Sarah said firmly. No, Lyra shook her head. This is why I'm here. This is what I was meant to do. The timeline doesn't need 2 of me. It needs one Lyra who grows up with both parents alive, who doesn't lose her mother, who becomes something better than I could ever be. She looked at infant Lyra sleeping in Sarah's arms. She's the real one. I'm just the echo that made sure she could exist. David felt his throat tighten. Lyra, no. We can find another way. There is no other way. You know it. The Flame Keepers will not stop. More will die. Eventually, they'll overwhelm you. Eventually, I'll be born into the same timeline that created me. The loop will close, unless we break it here now. Older Lyra smiled sadly. I got to meet my mother. I got to have a family for 2 years. That's more than I ever had before. That's enough. The day of battle arrived under blood-red skies. The Flamekeeper army marched into the volcanic valley exactly as David predicted. arrogant in their numbers, certain of victory. They didn't know about the quantum drive buried under volcanic rock. Didn't know about the trap. David watched from the ridgeline with Sarah and older Lyra. Baby Lyra was safe in the caves with guards. The army spread out below them. Thousands of Drakari warriors calling for blood and purity. Are you ready? David asked older Lyra. She nodded. I was born ready. Or I will be born ready. Time is confusing. She tried to joke, but her voice shook. She was scared. 8 years old and facing oblivion. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. It's the only way you save her. Older Lyra hugged David fiercely. Goodbye, father. In another life, we had more time. But this life, this moment is enough. Tell younger me stories about me. Tell her she was brave. Then she hugged Sarah. Take care of them both. Be the mother I remember, strong and fierce and full of love. I will. I promise. Sarah's voice broke. Older Lyra pulled away before either could stop her. She ran down the slope toward the quantum drive. David had modified it with a dead man's switch. It needed someone to stand at the center point. Someone to act as the anchor for the temporal bubble. Someone to be erased when the drive activated. Lyra, wait. David started after her, but Sarah held him back. Let her go. She made her choice. Honor it. They watched older Lyra reach the center of the valley. She was so small down there. Just a child. But she stood straight and tall, raised her hand in a final wave. Then she activated the drive. Reality tore open. The quantum field expanded outward in a sphere of shimmering light. It caught the Flamekeeper army mid-charge, caught thousands of warriors in a bubble where time moved differently. To them, years would pass. To the outside world, mere heartbeats. But the drive was more damaged than David realized. The temporal energy didn't contain itself. It began to spread, feeding on the volcanic power beneath it. The bubble grew unstable. Multiple timelines began overlapping. David saw impossible things. The valley as it was centuries ago. As it would be centuries from now. Different versions of now. Branching possibilities all existing simultaneously. And at the center of it all stood older Lyra. Not screaming. Not afraid. Glowing with temporal energy as she absorbed the paradox into herself. Stabilizing the chaos through sheer force of will. She's not being erased, David breathed. She's becoming the anchor. The fixed point that holds everything together. The AI and David's equipment screamed warnings. Causality collapse imminent. Multiple timeline merger in progress. Paradox resolution through sacrifice. She's taking the temporal damage into herself to protect the prime timeline. Sarah watched with tears streaming down her scaled face. My brave daughter. My beautiful brave daughter. The light grew brighter. Older Lyra's form began to break apart into pure energy. But she was smiling. David could see it even from this distance. She was happy, because she was saving them. Saving the little version of herself that would grow up with both parents, that would never know her mother's death, that would become who she was meant to be all along. Then the light collapsed inward. The temporal bubble stabilized. The Flamekeeper army was trapped, frozen in a time loop, and older Lyra was gone. Not dead, not exactly, but not existing anymore either. The paradox had resolved itself. Only one Lyra remained, the baby sleeping safely in the caves. The timeline had corrected itself around her sacrifice. David fell to his knees. Sarah collapsed beside him. They had won. The army was neutralized. Their clan was safe. Baby Lyra would grow up in peace. The future had changed. But the cost? The cost was a daughter they would always remember even though she had never truly existed. A ghost from a deleted timeline who had given everything so her other self could live. 3 days later, the Flamekeeper warriors emerged from the time bubble. To them, 30 years had passed. They were broken, aged, changed, many had gone mad. Others had found enlightenment. None wanted war anymore. They surrendered immediately, begging for mercy. Varos granted it. The wars ended that day. The clans began to heal. And David and Sarah raised their daughter in a world forever changed by a girl who had existed just long enough to ensure she could exist differently. Baby Lyra grew fast and strong. At 3 years old, she sometimes said strange things. I remember being older. I remember saving you. Was that a dream? Neither parent knew how to answer that. The timeline had folded in on itself. Maybe some part of older Lyra lived in her younger self. Maybe memories could transcend time and paradox. Yes, David would tell her. You dreamed you saved us. And you did. Because in a way she had. Both versions of her, working across time to create a future where they could all be together. 5 years after the battle that ended the Flame Wars, David stood on a platform overlooking the transformed Crimson Wing settlement. It wasn't just a settlement anymore. It had become a city. The first true city on Drakkar Prime, where tradition merged with innovation, where dragons and technology coexisted in ways no one had imagined possible. His daughter ran through the crowds below, laughing with other children. 7-year-old Lyra was remarkable. She had her mother's strength and grace, her father's curiosity and tactical mind. Her silver hair caught the double sunlight as she played. She was happy, loved, safe. Everything older Lyra had sacrificed herself to achieve. "You look sad," Sarah said, appearing beside him. Her scales had darkened slightly with age and motherhood. She wore armor now, as commander of the Unified Clan Alliance. Pharos had passed leadership to her 2 years ago, recognizing she had the vision to lead their people into a new era. Just remembering, older Lyra would be 13 now if she still existed. I wonder what she would think of all this. She knows, somewhere, somehow. Sarah wrapped a wing around him. I feel it sometimes, like an echo of memory that isn't mine, watching us from outside time. Proud of what we built, David leaned into her warmth. The bonding ritual had given him some Drakkari traits over time. His body temperature ran hotter now. His senses were sharper. Sarah had become more adaptable to temperature changes, able to withstand cold that would have paralyzed other Drakkari. They were changing each other on a biological level, becoming something new. The quantum drive finally stabilized, David said quietly. Last night, the AI finished the analysis. Sarah went still. You can go home. No, I can send a message home. Through time, the drive isn't strong enough to transport matter anymore, but it can send information. Data, coordinates, everything we've learned here. Your people will come. Eventually, in about 600 years if the timeline holds, they'll receive my message and reverse engineer the coordinates. They'll send ships, make contact with the Drakkari of that era. David smiled slightly. We've created the foundation for an alliance that will last millennia. Then it was worth it. All of it, the crash, the paradox, the sacrifice. Sarah looked down at Lyra playing below. She is the bridge. The first of a new kind, human and Drakkari combined. The prophecies spoke of a child who would unite or destroy all. We chose unite. Movement in the crowd caught David's attention. A transport from the spaceport. They'd built it 3 years ago after salvaging enough from his ship to create basic launch capability. Nothing sophisticated, just enough to reach orbit and establish satellites for communication and observation. But it was a start. The transport carried passengers. Human passengers, David's breath caught. That's impossible, but it wasn't. 3 humans emerged from the transport looking around in wonder at the Drakkari city. They wore modern Earth Federation uniforms. Not from David's time, from later, much later. They carried equipment that David didn't recognize, more advanced than anything from his era. One of them, a woman with silver hair and amber eyes, looked directly up at the platform where David and Sarah stood. She smiled. A familiar smile, then she started walking toward them with confident purpose. No, David whispered. It can't be, but it was. As the woman climbed the stairs to their platform, the resemblance became undeniable. She was human, fully human, but she had Lyra's eyes, Lyra's smile, Lyra's way of moving. She stopped in front of them and saluted formally. Captain David Rivers, Commander Sarah of Crimson Wing. I am Lieutenant Commander River, Earth Federation Temporal Research Division. I bring greetings from Earth, circa 3447. And I bring a message from someone who wants you to know she's fine. River? David's voice cracked. That's not a common name. It's not my name. It's yours. I'm your descendant. 5 generations removed. Your great-great-great-great-granddaughter, if we're being precise. The woman grinned. This is confusing, I know. Time travel usually is. But here's what happened. Your quantum message reached Earth 3 months ago, our time. We reverse-engineered the coordinates. But when we sent probe ships, we found something unexpected. She pulled out a device and projected a hologram. It showed a massive structure in orbit around Drakkar Prime. A station built from technology that merged human and Drakkari design principles. Organic curves housing advanced machinery. Dragon wings and metal working in perfect harmony. This station appeared in orbit 600 years ago from our perspective. 20 years ago from yours. No one built it. It simply manifested. At its center, we found a stasis pod containing a genetic sample. Perfectly preserved. Analysis showed it was Drakari human hybrid. Female. Age 8 at time of preservation. David's legs went weak. Sarah caught him. The sample contained memories. River continued softly. Encoded in the DNA itself. Genetic memory carried across generations. We extracted them. Studied them. Understood them. Lieutenant Commander Lyra Rivers, timeline designation Alpha, sacrificed herself to stabilize a paradox, but she didn't die. She became something else, something beyond time, and she left us a gift. River gestured, and the two other humans brought forward a container. Inside was an infant in biosuspension. The baby had silver hair, amber eyes with human features but subtle Drakari characteristics, a perfect hybrid. The genetic sample grew itself. Used the station's technology to create a clone. This child, she's Lyra, or she will be. The station's programming was clear. Deliver this child to David Rivers and Sarah of Crimson Wing exactly 20 years after the battle that ended the Flame Wars. Raise her as your own. She is the missing piece. The echo made flesh again. Sarah took the container with shaking hands. The baby inside stirred, opening eyes that held ancient knowledge and complete innocence simultaneously. Our daughter. She came back to us. Not exactly the same Lyra, River explained. The memories are dormant. She'll grow up new, fresh, but carrying the potential of who she was before. Think of it as reincarnation with a technological twist. The universe found a way to preserve her, to let her exist in the timeline she created. David looked at the baby, at the impossible gift from a daughter who had transcended time itself. She's really here, really real. As real as anything gets when you're dealing with temporal paradoxes. River smiled. Oh, and she left you a message. Audio only. Want to hear it? David nodded, not trusting his voice. River activated her device. A child's voice filled the air. Older Lyra's voice. Hi, Mama. Hi, Papa. If you're hearing this, I did it. I found a way to come back without breaking the timeline. Turns out when you become a temporal anchor point, you get to exist outside normal causality. Time is weird like that. I can't be the old me. That version is gone. But I can be new me. Get to grow up again. Get to have you both for real this time. The station will take care of itself. The technology I left behind will help humanity and Drakari build something beautiful together, and I'll get to be part of it, just as I always should have been. See you soon. Love you both. Forever across all timelines. The message ended. Silence fell across the platform. Then Sarah opened the container and lifted the baby out. The infant gurgled happily, reaching tiny hands toward her mother's face, toward scales she somehow recognized despite being newborn. Welcome home, little star, Sarah whispered. Welcome home. Young Lyra, the 7-year-old playing below, felt something. She looked up at the platform, saw her parents holding a baby, felt a connection she couldn't explain. She ran up the stairs, her friends forgotten. Mama, Papa, who is that? Your sister. David said, the lie and truth mixing into something that made more sense than reality. She's been lost. Now she's found. You'll help us take care of her, won't you? Young Lyra looked at the baby, saw her own eyes staring back, felt memories that weren't hers stirring in the back of her mind. I know her. I don't know how, but I know her. You'll figure it out, River said kindly. You've got time. Both of you do. All the time in the world to become who you're meant to be. The next weeks passed in joyful chaos. They had 2 daughters now, 7-year-old Lyra and infant Lyra, who they began calling Star to differentiate. The older girl adored her baby sister with fierce devotion that made no logical sense, but time travel rarely did. River and her team stayed to help establish formal first contact. The Earth Federation wouldn't send colony ships for years, but they established communication relays, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, the foundation for an alliance that would span centuries. David spent his evenings in his workshop, examining the technology from the station. It was beyond anything he could have imagined. Quantum computers that thought in temporal dimensions, organic metal that grew and healed itself, energy systems that drew power from the fabric of space-time itself. Older Lyra had become something incredible during her time as a temporal anchor. She'd learned to manipulate time and technology at a fundamental level, and she'd left all that knowledge encoded in the Station for Humanity and Drakari to discover together. One night, as David watched twin suns set over the city, Sarah joined him with baby Star sleeping against her chest. Do you regret it? Crashing here? Losing your old life? Every day, David admitted. And never. I miss Earth, miss my friends, miss knowing where I fit in the universe. But here I found something I never had back home. Purpose, family, a future worth fighting for. We changed everything. The timeline, the prophecies, ourselves. We did, and we'll keep changing. That's what life is. Constant change. We just happened to do it across 600 years and multiple versions of reality. Sarah laughed softly. When you put it that way, we're doing pretty well. Young Lyra ran out onto the balcony, her homework forgotten. Papa, the Earth people said they want to teach me about space travel. Can I learn, please? Of course you can. You're going to be the first Drakari human hybrid to fly between stars. Just like your sister would have wanted. Which sister? Star or the other me? The one who saved everyone? David pulled her close. Both. You carry her memory even if you don't remember yet. You are who she fought to let you become. Years passed. The city grew into a metropolis. More humans came, establishing small settlements. Drakari and humans began forming bonds, creating more hybrid children. Lyra and Star weren't unique anymore. They were the first of many. At 13, young Lyra joined Earth Federation Training Academy. She excelled at everything. Tactical analysis, engineering, diplomacy, flight. She was extraordinary in ways that went beyond genetics. As if the universe itself was ensuring she became something special, Star grew different, quieter, more introspective. She spent hours in meditation, touching something deeper than thought. At age 6, she could manipulate small temporal fields, make objects exist slightly out of phase with normal time. David's AI analyzed her abilities with fascination and concern. She's tapping into the same forces older Lyra became part of. The temporal energy is in her DNA. She's learning to control it consciously. On Lyra's 16th birthday, something changed. She stood looking at the stars and suddenly gasped. Memories flooded in. Not her memories. Older Lyra's memories. The life lived in another timeline. The sacrifice. The transformation. All of it. She found David in his workshop, tears streaming down her face. I remember all of it. The other timeline. Being 8 years old and alone. Meeting you for the first time. Sacrificing myself. Becoming something else. It's all there in my head. Like a dream that's more real than waking life. David held her while she cried. The genetic memory finally activated. Star has it too. She's been accessing it since she was little. But for you, it waited until you were old enough to understand. I died. She died, I died. We're the same person, but not. I don't know how to process this. One moment at a time. You're Lyra. Both versions of Lyra. All versions. Time made you complicated, but that doesn't make you any less real. Over the next months, Lyra integrated the memories. She understood now why she'd always felt drawn to temporal mechanics, why she'd chosen to study quantum engineering, why she looked at the stars with longing. Part of her had already lived a different life, had already sacrificed everything for the people she loved. At 21, Lyra graduated top of her class from the Joint Earth Federation and Drakari Alliance Academy. She was offered command of the first exploration vessel, designed and built cooperatively by both species. The ship was named Wanderer 2, in honor of the vessel that had started everything. It's perfect, Lyra told her parents the night before her first mission. I get to explore the stars. Unite two species through action rather than just words. It's everything both versions of me ever wanted. Sarah touched her daughter's face gently. You are so much more than we ever imagined. Both my daughters are. Star with her temporal abilities. You with your courage and brilliance. I see your future and it burns bright. Our future, Lyra corrected. All of us together. That's what matters. Star, now 15 and startlingly powerful in her temporal manipulation abilities, hugged her older sister. I've seen it. The timelines. Where you go. What you become. You're going to change everything again. Just like the first time. Spoilers, Lyra teased. No fair using time powers to peek ahead. Can't help it. Time talks to me. It's been talking since I was born. And it says you're important. Really important. Lyra's first mission took her to the edge of known space. She made first contact with 2 new species, negotiated trade agreements, proved that humans and Drakari could work together seamlessly. Her crew was mixed. 3 humans, 3 Drakari, 3 hybrids like herself. The perfect balance. David watched the mission reports with pride. His daughter was doing exactly what he'd hoped. Building bridges, creating connections, making the galaxy smaller and more unified. On the 5th year of Lyra's exploration mission, something unexpected happened. Her ship encountered a temporal anomaly, a tear in space-time identical to the one that had brought David to this world. But this time they were prepared. They had technology, understanding, and Star, who had joined her sister's crew 2 years prior as temporal science officer. "We can stabilize it," Star reported from the science station. "Use it. Create a controlled pathway through time and space. Link different points in the timeline permanently." "Are you sure?" Lyra asked. "Last time something like this happened, it stranded Papa and nearly destroyed the timeline. Last time we didn't understand what we were dealing with. Now we do. I can feel the structure of it. The temporal mathematics. It's beautiful and terrifying, but manageable. If we're careful." They were careful. Over 6 months, Star worked with both human and Drakari scientists to understand the anomaly, to map its connections through time, and what they discovered changed everything. The anomaly wasn't random. It was artificial, created deliberately by advanced temporal technology, and the energy signature matched the station that had appeared in orbit around Drakkar Prime, the station older Lyra had become part of. "She's still out there," Star whispered in awe. "The original Lyra, the one who sacrificed herself. She didn't just die or merge with me. She became part of the temporal structure itself. She's been guiding events, making sure the timeline flows correctly. She's been protecting us from outside time." Lyra stared at the readings. "Can we communicate with her?" "I think so. Through me. I'm connected to her through the genetic memory, through the temporal energy in our DNA. If I can tune my abilities correctly, I might be able to reach her, talk to her across the barrier of causality itself." It took 3 attempts. On the 3rd try, Star's eyes went pure white with temporal energy. When she spoke, it was with 2 voices. Her own and another, older. The voice from the message they'd received years ago. "Hello, Papa." "Hello, Mama." "Hello, me." The dual voices were strange, but somehow right. "I told you I'd find a way back. Just took a while to figure out how to talk across time without breaking everything." David, watching from Drakkar Prime through the communication link, felt tears on his face. "Lyra? Original Lyra? I prefer temporal anchor Lyra, but yes, it's me. Or the part of me that exists outside normal space. I've been watching, helping when I could, making sure the timeline stayed stable. You've done so well. Both of you, all of you, built something beautiful from a crash and a paradox. Can you come back? Really come back?" Sarah asked. "I am back. In Star, in the Lyra standing on that ship. In every hybrid child born from our timeline. I'm woven into the fabric of this reality now. Not gone, just different, expanded." The voice paused. "But I can do more. With the anomaly stabilized, I can create permanent pathways. Link Earth and Drakkar Prime directly. Let humanity and Drakari travel freely across time and space. Unite the species completely. That would change history," temporal Lyra said, her voice mixing with the other. "Create a branching point. A new timeline. No, fulfill the old one. Complete the cycle. I was sent back to meet you, Papa. To make sure you and Mama came together. To create myself. Now I can close the loop. Make sure everything that happened happens perfectly. Forever." Over the next year they did exactly that. Using the anomaly and Star's abilities, they created stable wormholes connecting Earth and Drakkar Prime. What would have taken 600 years of normal spaceflight became instant. The timeline compressed, the prophecy fulfilled. Humanity and Drakari became true allies, not across centuries but across moments. Cultural exchange happened in years instead of generations. Technology merged. Biology merged. Within 2 decades, you couldn't tell where one species ended and the other began. David and Sarah watched it all from their home on Drakkar Prime. They'd grown old together. David's hair was white. Sarah's scales had faded to silver, but they were still bonded, still in love, still amazed by what their impossible family had created. "We broke time," Sarah said one evening. "Shattered causality, created paradoxes, and somehow the universe thanked us for it." "Because we did it with love," David replied. Every choice we made was about protecting each other, saving each other, building something better. Time doesn't punish that. It rewards it. Their daughters visited often. Temporal Lyra commanding the exploration fleet, Star leading the Temporal Research Institute. Both brilliant. Both powerful. Both living the lives they'd fought across timelines to achieve. On David's 70th birthday, the entire family gathered. Children, grandchildren, friends from both species. The celebration lasted 3 days. On the final night, as both suns set in perfect alignment, something extraordinary happened. Temporal Lyra's ship appeared in orbit. But it wasn't alone. Following behind it was a fleet. Hundreds of ships, thousands. Human, Drakari, hybrid. Species they hadn't even met yet, all following the ship commanded by David's daughter. A message came through. Temporal Lyra's voice, but older, stronger. Papa, Mama, I wanted you to see this. The future we built. The alliance we created. It doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop ever. We're going to unite the entire galaxy. Bring peace where there was war. Bring hope where there was despair. And it all started because one human crashed on an alien world and refused to accept destiny. You taught me that. Both versions of me. That the future isn't written. It's built. One choice at a time. The fleet passed overhead in perfect formation, a symbol of unity that would echo across centuries. David watched with Star beside him, his youngest daughter's hand in his. Did we do good? He asked her quietly. Star smiled. Her eyes flickered with temporal energy. She could see all possible futures, all branching timelines. You did perfect. In every version of reality I can perceive, this timeline is the best one, the one where everyone wins, where love transcends causality itself. Even though we broke every rule of temporal mechanics, especially because of that. Rules are just suggestions when you're rewriting history from inside a paradox. Star leaned against him. Besides, the universe likes stories with happy endings. We gave it the best one. Years later, David Rivers died peacefully in his sleep. Sarah held him until the end, their bond never breaking even as his heart stopped. She joined him 3 days later, unable to exist without her mate. Drakari bonding was that strong. They were buried together on a hill overlooking the city they'd helped build. The city where two species learned to live as one, where impossibility became reality, where time itself bent to allow love to exist. At the funeral, both daughters spoke. Temporal Lyra talked about sacrifice and duty. Star talked about love and family. But the most powerful words came from someone unexpected. An elderly human woman stepped forward. River, the lieutenant commander who had delivered baby Star 20 years ago. She was old now, near the end of her own life. She'd stayed on Drakkar Prime, becoming part of the community, part of the family. I am the last of the original timeline, she said quietly. The last human who remembers Earth before the wormholes, before the Alliance. I came here to deliver a message from the past, but I stayed because I found something better than home. I found hope. She looked at the two Lyras. Your father taught us that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our refusal to accept defeat. Our ability to love across any boundary, to build family from strangers, to create miracles from disasters. Captain David Rivers crashed on this world and turned catastrophe into destiny. That is the human spirit. That is why we survive, why we thrive, why we'll never stop reaching for the stars. The funeral ended as both suns set. As darkness fell, something amazing happened. The orbital station, the one older Lyra had become part of, lit up like a second star. It pulsed with temporal energy in a pattern that clearly wasn't random. Star translated. It's her. The original Lyra, the temporal anchor. She's saying goodbye. And thank you. And that she'll watch over us always from outside time, where she can see all possibilities, guide all timelines, protect everyone she loves across infinite realities. The light pulsed 3 more times, then faded to a gentle glow that would remain forever. A beacon, a reminder, a promise kept across time itself. Temporal Lyra looked up at the station with tears streaming down her face. We did it, all of us. We broke the loop and created something better. A future where nobody has to sacrifice, where everyone gets to live, where love wins. Love always wins, Star replied softly. That's the secret. The thing the universe tries to teach us over and over. Love transcends everything. Even time, even death, even paradox. They stood together, two versions of the same impossible girl, and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, their parents existed in memory, in legacy, in the civilization they'd built from a crash, and a daughter who existed before she was born. The story could have ended there, but stories about time travel never really end. They just loop back to the beginning, somewhere in the quantum foam of collapsed timelines, a ship prepared for a test flight. Captain David Rivers ran through his pre-flight checklist. Everything looked good. The quantum fold drive hummed steadily. This would be routine. But reality had other plans. It always did. And 600 years in the past, on a world with purple skies and twin suns, a small girl with silver hair and amber eyes waited by a crashed ship. Waited for her father to fall from the sky. Waited for a paradox to begin again. Time is a circle. Love is what breaks it. And in breaking it creates something eternal. The end and the beginning. Forever.